Oh, thank you, Betty, for, well, this generous introduction and for inviting me here. And then thank you to each and every one of you for being here. This is an example of then collaborating with different departments in the university, because all these maps have been made by students in the geography department at UWSP Stevens Point. So I just use them. So it was just a constant conversation about what we can do, how can we work around these issues. And also, so the talk is Cultural Planning in Madison, Wisconsin toward authentic participation using GIS. But I'm not going to be talking about the cultural plan that they just released, because Madison started their work on cultural plan in 2009. And I happened to be there over the summer, and I spent the summer at the Eden Friend Foundation, which was an artist residency, collecting data, but I wasn't involved in the cultural plan. And now they just released the draft, so if you are curious to see what they did, you can find that on the website of the City of Madison. So in this case, I'm just suggesting and giving a couple of recommendations to how a local government could use GIS to foster participation in a cultural planning context. But so I'm using Madison just as an example. So it can be done by any other city in the US. So I'm really thrilled to be here right now that Chicago is just starting this cultural plan. So we'll see if that can be in some way helpful. And feel free to ask clarification questions while I'm going through if you don't understand something, if my accent also is making things kind of, I don't know, colorful, so you're like, oh, what did you just say? So feel free to stop me, but maybe if you can leave the more challenging question at the end when I'm done with building up my argument, that would be great. So here I'm giving an outline of the talk. I will start with a background about the topic, and then I will provide an overview of the theory about authentic participation, then discuss the characteristics and strengths of GIS as a tool for authentic participation. And then I will show an example of how GIS can then be used towards authentic participation using Madison, and I will sum up in the conclusion all my argument and reiterate the strengths of using GIS in this planning process. So let me start then with some background about cultural planning and authentic participation. So I was pleased to hear in the room that there are so many kindred spirits, so people interested already in cultural planning or anyway community engagement. So the main objective of cultural planning has been place making, so create a sense of place where people are engaged in working in this process. However, it has a different definition, and especially in different countries, has been thought in different ways. So there are several authors that describe cultural planning as a policy process towards cultural development. And right here I have, I don't know if you can see little, the names of people defining cultural planning in this way. Some other authors, and especially from the UK, they stress the idea that cultural planning is not about planning for culture, but rather is a cultural approach to urban planning that requires a vision of planning not limited to just physical aspects. And some other people then stress the idea that cultural planning is a tool for community development that consists of a plan of action that uses arts and culture to address the social and economic needs of the community. However, despite this different definition and configuration of cultural planning, public involvement has a central role in all these different perspectives. So all of them think that what's crucial is to involve the general public. However, the literature didn't really articulate what does this mean? What is public involvement? So in this study, I investigate this issue mainly asking two questions. What is authentic participation? And this question looks at the theoretical underpinning of considering what it means to engage the community in the policy-making process. And the second question is, how can a local government promote authentic participation? So once we understand what authentic participation is, so how can we help a local government to promote it? And so what tools can we use and what strategy can be suggested to a local organization? So in other words, what I try to suggest is a top-down strategy for bottom-up involvement. Therefore, my next step is to look into the theory. Authentic participation. So, concepts and practice of public participation have always been very important in America. But they grew even more popular throughout the 1970s and 1980s, and also became the operational focus of many local, national, and even international agencies. And I looked at how public participation has been framed, especially in the American context of municipal government, and in particular efforts to involve the community in the policy planning process used collaborative planning. So public participation has been studied looking at the purposes that it tries to achieve and the mechanisms used to involve the general public. So in terms of purposes, there is this hierarchy going towards more and more involved in the engagement of the citizens that goes from informing, educating, testing reaction, seeking ideas, and sharing decision-making. While for mechanisms, the means that have been used in American local governments have been deliberative polls, referenda, opinion survey, focus groups, and citizens panel. And again, I'm referring here to Jackson, a work that she did in 2001, and then those mechanisms have been put together by Sanoff and Carver that did an extensive studies about authentic participation. And here, despite the variety of means, all these mechanisms, though, require what the post-positive literature in public policy call a mechanical and reactive engagement of the public. That is serving only some of the purpose of participation, leaving out the foundational ones. So they leave out the purpose of informing and educating the people. So the post-positive literature says that in order to have authentic participation, we cannot afford to leave out those steps. And what is needed is a more dialogical exchange between the local government and the citizens involved. In order to do that, the local government has to eliminate the expert-citizen relationship. So in other words, what is missing in the traditional mechanisms of public participation in American local policymaking is a two-way communication between the local government and the citizens, because the local government is asking the citizens for their input, but is the local government telling something and telling what they know to citizens? No, because they keep this idea that there is an expert, where by expert, they mean the administrator and the social scientist. So again, the post-positive literature says we have to get rid of this barrier. So we have to move away from the idea that the administrator has the role of the expert manager that knows everything about the administrative systems, and the citizens are merely reactive. So administrators need also to become cooperative participants. And also, another facet of this expert-citizen relationship is to overcome the idea that the social scientist is the expert. And this is based on the belief that the social scientist should resolve social issues and conflicts not merely through empirical measurement, as the positivist theory would claim, but rather through discussion and interpretation of data. And in order to overcome this barrier, what is needed is that the local government educate everybody participating in the process about the technicality of the administrative system, and also inform the participants about the empirical data. So, provided now with this theoretical background that defines the requirements for authentic participation, let me now move on to the next question, that was, what can be a tool that the local government can use to foster this authentic participation? So the question was, how can a local government promote authentic participation? Now, after we went through this review of the literature, we can rephrase the question as, how can a local government inform and educate? And then remember that we are asking this question in the context of cultural planning that is about placemaking. Then the question becomes, how can a local government inform and educate, providing a spatial understanding? My answer to the question is the recommendation to use geographical information system. First of all, let me give you the two main characteristics of GIS. That is, it is a computerized cartography, so it can produce maps providing the administrative boundaries of territories, but at the same time is also a database management. So it can collect information about spatial objects. So we can collect layers of data about those administrative boundaries. So those are the two main characteristics, but then also what are the strengths of GIS that also make me say, well, we should use GIS to inform and educate. First of all is a territory interface. So creating maps and layers of data with maps, it provides a territory interface of administrative systems and of the community. So in this case is ideal for placemaking objectives. Also, the display capabilities are encouraging a lay participation because it can display in a very easy, understandable way a lot of data. So that's why it's really encouraging participation from non-experts. Finally, there's always issues with costs, right? When a local government is engaging in any kind of process for policymaking, they have also to think about how much it's going to cost. And in fact, this is a question also for the Chicago Cultural Plan. How much are we going to invest in this process? And one great thing is that GIS is already available. So a lot of local governments are already using GIS in other departments for transportation purposes or from zoning, housing. So it wouldn't require additional costs for the process. And it helps then to educate about technicality of administrative systems and inform all the participants about empirical data that are the two fundamental steps to spark authentic participation, as we saw before. So I will explain how these two objectives can be reached, providing two suggestions for the municipality of Madison, Wisconsin. So let's move on. How can then GIS apply towards these authentic participation engagement? Everybody okay so far? It's easy to follow what I'm trying to say? Great, so now we are ready to see how Madison can do this. I don't know if anybody in the room is not familiar with Madison, so just in case, I put that on the map, so you know where that is, and also I gave you some basic facts about it. I think it's interesting that they have an arts commission that was created in 1974, because in local governments, it's not so common in the United States to have an agency or anyway a committee dedicated to the arts. The most common format is to have no-profit organizations that are outside the structure of agency of the local government. So, however, what the Madison Arts Commission did was to facilitate this process of a cultural plan starting in 2009. And the main objective was a community decision-making process to better utilize creative work. So that's what they were trying to do. So the framework that I draw to show how GIS can help in pursuing authentic participation is based on the idea that a local government needs to pursue a two-way communication and overcome the barrier expert-citizen relationship. So the tool that is needed is to educate about technicality and data of the community. What can this tool be? So what follows suggests that GIS can do that. To educate, it will unpack the administrative discourse, and to inform, it will be able to organize empirical data in a spatial manner. So let's start with how is GIS unpacking administrative discourse. Here you can see a map of the Madison area. So the yellow area is the city of Madison, while the white and gray areas are the town and city that are involved in all of this. And actually are the 27 municipalities that are part of the MPOs, which is the Municipal Planning Organization that is an agency working to have the transportation efforts of that area made all together. So my choice of picking what municipalities should I choose to have there was looking at the MPO. But so you see how with a map you can get right away the complexity of the governance of such a territory, because we have 27 municipalities, so 27 local governments engaged in having to administrate that territory. And this other one I think is interesting is that the map shows in solid colors the 5 areas into which the city territory has been divided. So the city divided the territory of Madison in 5 neighborhood resource teams. And each of these area is meant to have a team with staffers from the different agencies, from local agencies such as the fire department, the library, the park and recreation department, work together to solve specific issues of each of these areas. And then each of these areas has also a leader that should be the person to whom the residents can go and talk to in case they want to raise one of the problems that they can want to work out for their specific area. So you see all these 5, and here you can see the inset. This is the Dane County, and the inset shows you then the 27 municipalities in Madison with their NRTs, that stands for Neighborhood Resource Team. So the output that GIS produces that are maps can educate about technicality, telling to anybody that administrative entities have a geographic domain. So the expected outcome is that everybody can be empowered because it helps to make a connection between people's location and their administrative group they belong to. So with a map, it's easy to figure out, okay, I live here, so I have to get in touch with the leader of this NRT in order to raise an issue. So that's empowering you because you know to whom you can talk to. And then also, it really unpacks the mechanisms of governance. So also, anybody can understand how they can have a civic conversation, not just with the local governments, but also with other civic groups involved in the same area. So it's really an incentive, I think, to be proactive in the discourse, rather than simply provide input. So it's not that the government is knocking at your door and ask them about the issue, but you can be the one who says, hey, there is this issue that you should look at. And also can help to be involved constantly, not just as a one-shot deal. Oh, now we are doing the cultural planning. So how about we involve the arts organization? So arts organizations are involved only as a one-shot deal. When with a map, they are empowered and they can really be educated about administrative mechanisms and in this way be proactive all the time. And this was the first very example. And we know that our next requirement to foster participation is to inform all the people involved in the planning process. And too often, empirical data are only available from media that are hard to read and require some skills that you need a lot of training in order to be able to use this data. So the general public does not have data to sustain their position. While a GIS can organize empirical data in a way that does not require technical training to understand it. So in addition to displaying geopolitical data, as we just saw with the map, GIS, being a data management tool, as you remember, that was also the second characteristic of GIS, can organize attribute data for each of these jurisdictions. Once we understand this jurisdiction, let's understand them also from a social economic point of view, what's going on there. So for the purpose of cultural planning, I chose to collect data about cultural assets and the residents of those communities. And cultural assets are defined as the organizations involved in the production and consumption of cultural products and services, while to get a snapshot or anyway a profile of the community living there, I chose as indicators population, so how many people live there, race, specifically white and black people, and then median age and media household income. And the very first finding we get from ranking this data is that the wealthiest location is Sherwood Hills. Sherwood Hills, which is a suburb that is included in the city territory. So it's interesting also to see how the territory really is organized. And this easy, manageable way of presenting data will allow their interpretation to everybody. And the interpretation is not left only to the expert, but is open to everybody, again, dismissing the idea that there is only one scientific solution to a social or political problem. So let's say when all the participants get together to discuss what can be a step in the cultural planning process is understand what does that mean that Sherwood Hills is the wealthiest neighborhood. What are we doing with that? So we can see that in terms of cultural assets, it's not so rich. So, because most likely residents are using the downtown cultural assets of the city. And if that is the case, maybe the city of Madison has to have a conversation with the public officials of Sherwood Hills. And also, if they are using the Madison's cultural assets, maybe they should find a way also to contribute to the maintenance of those cultural assets. But this can be open to interpretation. And so once we have the data, and the data is easy readable, then everybody involved can then come up with, oh, what can we do in the plan to address this? And one other finding is the most diverse town. It's kind of hard to find it, right? The most diverse town is the town of Madison. Isn't that interesting that in the city of Madison, there is the town of Madison? And you see, with the map, it's so clear and makes it, oh, really? And the town of Madison includes this white little area because you see the territory of the city is annexing a lot of the town territory. And so the town, so if you live here, you are in the town of Madison. If you live here, you are in the city. If you live here, you are in the town. So that means that, the way you pay taxes, the way you elect officials is a different way. And the fact that here we can find out that the population is the most diverse, is the area where there is the highest number of Black people, where also there are the poorest people and also the youngest one. But if we focus mainly on race issues, what can be done is to try to figure out, are there interactions between the cultural offering of this area and the people actually living there? So is the cultural offering mirroring the cultural background of the people living there? Or maybe the city should consider broadening the ethnical background of cultural offering of the city. So once again, at this point, once you have this kind of information, then everybody can bring their experience to then interpret the data and help to go to the next step of the planning process. So once again, the output is data, comparative data, then can be organized and can give layers of data about specific administrative entities. And why also is so important to understand the territory in terms of administrative entities is because policymaking is made by administrative entities. So when you are dealing with, anyway, a policy project, you have really to understand that. And then so if you can link that geographical understanding of administration to also data about the community living there, can help to share knowledge. So GIS, with the output of comparative data, create an expected outcome of having a common ground among all the participants. So all the participants learn and co-evolve together. And at that point is when really you have finally a base for real authentic participation, because at that point when you are then interpreting these easy manageable data is when you finally get to participate in a dialogical exchange. Yes?
Could you give an example of one of these administrative entities that you referred to?
The administrative entities I was talking are here. So are the town of, you can really see here, but all this town and all these cities, those are administrative entities. So
you're talking about the
municipal, yeah,
management,
yeah.
Not the art or cultural.
No, not even getting there, but it's more how municipal government can deal with artistic issues involving the community. I am almost done. So, in conclusion, let me sum up what I tried to show with this study. Well, the very first important point was to say that it's necessary to have a two-way communication in order to have authentic participation. And this can be reached using GIS, because GIS can help unpacking administrative discourse and organizing empirical data. And also, I was hoping to be able to highlight how a dialogical form of participation is likely to occur when the participants are empowered by being educated in the political discourse and have a shared knowledge as a common ground for discussion. Furthermore, we don't have to forget that this planning process in cultural plan has placemaking needs. So what is needed is to have an understanding, one, of the social and spatial dimension of the administrative system, and then the knowledge of spatially organized data about the community. So this study provided an operational model that can be used by any city. So it tells you, okay, in order to have a two-way communication, you have to get rid of the barrier citizen-expert relationship. And in case the citizen-expert relationship is the administrator, the purpose is to educate. The output is to use the map, and the expected outcome is to be empowered. In case the barrier is the social scientist, what you need to do is to inform, providing comparative data about the community, organized in a spatial way, and the expected outcome is that there is a shared knowledge among the participants. So in this way, this operational model, I think, shows how GIS can be really a powerful tool for a local government to foster top-down strategy for bottom-up involvement. Cool. Thank you all for your attention, and I'm now eager to hear your questions and feedback.